All right, so here's a prototype of what you might already be building, where you can select the various modules on the left-hand side and select the different lessons. Although I don't have not all my lessons have widgets, and so if I click on it, it fails if it doesn't have subtopics. And you have different topics here, and you can select the different topics, and you have widgets down below. So this is available already on a Git repository that I shared with you over the weekend, right? So you could take a look at the snippets of code just to give you an idea, all right, on how you might get started. Creating the widget list. It's in a particular branch. If you go to branches and you go to the Redux branch, right, you can see the history of commits, which is something that I would like to see also in your Git repositories, a history of commits as well, right? That they should be self-contained, addressing a particular issue. Mine is started over here, install Redux. All right, so if you go there, you'll see that you'll just have some dependencies there on having added Redux and React Redux. Okay, if you go on, the next one is added widget reducer. So this is the beginnings of what a reducer might look like with a list of widgets. Yes. Okay, this was an error since it's not returning a map. It was just returning an array, which is wrong. Just fine. Added widget reducer, and then created a store at the top. So I created a store. I brought in the reducer. I created a widget list container, which we'll see in a minute. And right where the course editor, where it renders the modules on the left, the lessons at the top, and the topics down below, right there, I added a provider, right, that fed the store to a widget list container. You see that? All right. And then the widget list container, as we'll see in a minute, it did the mapping of the properties. I fixed the fact that the widgets, the state didn't have an actual map. Right? It was returning an array that was wrong. Okay. Reducer, created a store in the fed. Here's the mapping in the widget list container. The widget list container, again, it's a mapping that takes the widgets in the state generated by the reducer, and it maps it to some property widgets, presumably rendered by widget list. Widget list presumably will have a property called widgets, which is going to iterate over that, right, and then render a list of widgets. Make sense? Right? So if we look at render the widget list is just a simple container that again takes a property widgets, right, and then just iterates over the widgets, and then just rendering a title. Right now it was just a simple title. Eventually it becomes much more complex, having the type of widget, and instead of rendering it here, it'll have multiple versions of a widget, right? The heading widget and the list widget and the image widget and whatnot. Right now, again, keep it simple, right? And just grow and introduce new complexity as we go. For the Redux. All right, so that was rendering a static list of widgets. Okay, that's a good place to start. Make sure that the plumbing works before we get into more complex things. So the next thing was to marry or connect the non-Redux world to this new Redux world. Okay, and because the non-Redux world needs to give us some context, saying, hey, It's the widget for this particular topic, because the widgets live inside of a topic, right? And so we need to map those two worlds. We need to somehow, the non-Redux world has to say, hey, it's this list of widgets, okay? And then that needs to be fed into the reducer. The reducer has to say, oh, I have a brand new starting state, okay, as I change from one topic to the next topic, okay? So the way I accomplish that is that in the container, in the widget list container, I am feeding a property called the widgets init, right? The initial state of the widgets. The initial state of the widgets, which will start always from the list of widgets in the currently selected topic, right? As I select different topics, right, I have a different list of arrays of widgets. Yes? So this is so the outside course editor maintains a state of the currently selected topic, and I see that most of you did something similar, right? Where you're maintaining some selected module, selected lesson, selected topic, right? And you vary them as you navigate. So the widgets live in there, so this property of the widget list container, the widgets in it, gets fed into the widget list, unfortunately, the only way to connect these two, was to convert my beautiful stateless widget list into a stateful, although it doesn't maintain any state, right? It's stateful, but it doesn't maintain any state. Right? That's different, right? What it does is that because I needed this life cycle function. I needed this React component lifecycle function that tells me, hey, something happened, right? You should render again, right? Here's your new state. Properties change. Your properties change. Otherwise, the properties might change, and the React component will never be notified, right? It only looks at the properties the first time around, but if they change, right, you never get notified. And because the properties are changing, because I'm changing different topics, I needed to notify and say, hey, your properties changed. Take a look at them. You need to look at them, right? Otherwise, it would only be fed as a property the first time and then never again. So I had to have this function. This function is only available if I inherit from the components, right? So this is the only reason why I had to become a full class as opposed to a stateless. All right? If this were a full Redux application, I wouldn't need to do this. All right? Only because I am marrying a non-Redux part of the application with a Redux part of the application. Anyway, so this I needed to receive this. And then where I receive the widgets in it, which is being passed to me from where? It's being passed to me from where? From here? Yeah, from here, right? It's being passed to me from here. Okay? And then passed down over here. All right, excellent. So that's where the marriage between the two are. All right, now I need to tell the reducer, hey, reducer, this is your brand new state, which then you're going to be manipulating, right? You're adding, removing, changing, whatever. But I need to tell you what your brand new state is. So to do that, the container is going to feed me an init function, right? That's how I'm going to tell the reducer that this is the brand new initial list of widgets. Okay, so this is how we're gonna notify in both the constructor and also in the component did update. So somewhere there it is. Here's my dispatcher to properties, which I'm gonna feed into the connect. Here's the connect. Right. Here's my dispatcher. Here's the init function. The init function being called right here, init. And this is how I tell the reducer, hey, reducer, here are the brand new widgets The action is init, is the very first init. This is also next time when we start connecting to the server. This is also how the reducer is going to have to go fetch this data from the server. It's going to need to know this is the very first time that the reducer is going to start rendering. It needs to initialize its state from the server. Go fetch all this from the server. Okay? And these are the widgets. These are the widgets. So they're being passed as an action. They're being passed as an action. So the reducer, here's a reducer, where before it was a static list of widgets. Now it has an init action, right? And initializes the state as the widgets that are in the action. And then these are the ones who are rendered. These are the ones who are rendered. These make their way into my widget list as the widgets. And then I iterate over those widgets, right, and render the widget title. Okay? Big runaround, right? It's a huge runaround, right, to do the connection. Anyway, after that, it becomes pretty similar to what we've seen so far. I do have it in a default state. Notice that the state, as part of the state, I can use ES6 to provide a default widget state. I believe it was crashing on me because I was going in and I didn't have an initial widget the very first time around. It would fail. It would then find the widgets, but at first it didn't have an initial state. So here you can initialize the state to be an empty array of widgets. Delete widget. So this was fine. In each of the widgets, or next to the title of the widgets, I added a button that allowed me to call a delete widget. This is a property being fed from the mapper, and I pass around the widget that is being removed in the mapper, right? In the dispatch to property mapper. Here's a delete widget, which generates an action of type delete widget, and it passes the widget that is being removed. In the reducer, I just do a filter. Right? I'm going to iterate over all the widgets in the state, and I'm going to filter out. Right? I'm only going to keep the widgets that are not the widget that I want to remove. See that? So I'm going to iterate over all the widgets. When I find the widget that I want to remove, I'll skip over it. Right? And I'll only keep the widgets that are not the widget that the ones you want to remove. So it's just a simple filter. So that's easy. I refactored it. Oh, I refactored it because here I am editing. I'm kind of editing the state of the reducer. Really, the state, eventually, all this state is going to live where? In the server. Yes? Right? All this will have to eventually live on the server. So as best practice, all manipulation of this data should be through the service. Right? Because the service at some point is going to start sending posts and puts and deletes HTTP requests to the server, right? Where all to store the state of the application in the server, right? Eventually, when we come back from the break, okay? So what I did, I refactored it so that it goes through the service. Currently, the service was a local service instance, and I'm just pushing it down as a property. And in the widget list, it uses the property. It uses the service. I'm also notifying the reducer. I actually implemented a better implementation of the core service. I don't know if I provided. Did I provide it to you? I didn't. Core service instance. Oh yeah, I converted it into singleton. Did I share this with you? I forget. Yeah. So the core service, a better implementation of the core service. I'm not sure how you implemented it, but a better implementation is for the core service to be a singleton instance. A singleton is a design pattern where oftentimes there's some objects, some instances that are best modeled as a single instance across the entire application, okay? And that you should not be instantiating yourself. Typically, you use some kind of API to get an instance of the singleton, and then it's the same instance across the entire application, right? A service is a perfect example of a singleton, right? Where there's only a single instance of this thing hanging around the entire application, almost like a global, right? And it provides static access to some shared resource. In this case, the courses. The courses are being shared amongst the entire application. So I refactor this. Instead of using the instance where we were instantiating a new course service, I removed that. And instead of using the instance, I'm using a static version of all these functions. So you have a single instance of these things. So now I can share the same single instance across the entire application. So I replaced everywhere the use of the course service, and it's implemented. So I no longer have to do I have to share this instance everywhere I need to use it. Instead, right, I can reuse the static implementation of the course service. So it simplified the implementation quite a lot. Here's the use of widget. So no longer do I need to pass it in. Right, no longer need to pass it in. I can use the static version of this. And here's the implementation of the singleton. I think this is the JSON object that I shared with you as a gist on Git. And here's the implementation. So notice that these are all static. You see that? These are all static, so I don't need to instantiate this anymore. And these are all the filters for retrieving, for deleting a module, deleting the widgets. Again, feel free to use any of this or ignore any of this, but I think it's a good start to get you going. All right. Again, it's in the branch, the Redux branch. I haven't yet merged it. I'll merge it a little later. I'll play around with it a little more. And as I add to it, feel free to take a look at it, see if it can help you. Right, and currently it's implemented this way, right? So you can select the different courses, the different modules on the left, and the topics on the right-hand side. It also shows you an implementation of the lists widget here, so that you can type something and updates, and it re-updates the list, right? And I can show you how that's implemented as well. All right, so let's start playing around with this. See if we can practice getting this going. All right, let's do that.